Beloved companions, we are here again. We arrive in this place where all we have to do is breathe. We don't have to impress or convince or win over. We don't have to know the words. It's all right if we didn't read the book, didn't get the qualification or carry the title or meet the mark. We don't have to be anything but who we are. Here we rest in essence together. And to move into this communal rest, we lay down our burdens, our longing, our craving, our unmet needs, our errors and regrets, our sudden disappointment, our anxiety and our shame, our sheer exhaustion, our bewilderment, our bafflement, our burgeoning terror. All of this we lay down together today. And as we do this, may we be filled instead with presence. May we feel held in the comfort of our community. May we discover new compassion for ourselves and for others. May we meet this moment with gentleness, with ease and gratitude for this air that we breathe together, for these questions that we ask together, for the justice that we seek together, and for the songs that we sing together. We are here together now, so let us bring our whole selves to this precious hour of worship. These words from Kate Steinberg welcome all who have gathered this morning for our Sunday service. Welcome to those of you who are here in the building at Essex Church. Welcome to everyone who's joining us from far and wide via Zoom, and indeed everyone who's tuning in at a later date via YouTube or the podcast. For anyone who just doesn't know me, my name is Jane Blackall and I'm minister with Kensington Unitarians, and I'm glad to be back after a few weeks away. This morning's service is titled Beautiful Questions. We're going to take some time to reflect on the power of questions of all sorts, the questions we might ask of ourselves, of other people, of society, or even God. Today's theme is partly inspired by the work of the poet David Whyte. We'll be hearing a fair bit from him later in the service. And partly by Sam Keane. These words that are on the front of your order of service if you're in the building. They're on the website with the full service text if you're joining online. And indeed an abbreviated version of this quote has been on our wayside pulpit in front of the church for quite a while. Sam Keane said, "Our minds, bodies, feelings, relationships are all informed by our questions. What you ask is who you are. What you find depends on what you search for. And what shapes our lives are the questions we ask, refuse to ask, or never think of asking." But before we go any further, let's light our chalice flame as we do every time we gather. This is a moment for us to pause, to centre ourselves, take a breath, and put aside any preoccupations that we came in carrying. This simple ritual connects us in solidarity with Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists the world over, and it reminds us of the proudly progressive religious tradition of which this gathering is part. We come to religious community from many paths and with diverse needs. If you've come here seeking comfort, may your pain be soothed. If you've come here looking for answers, may you find new questions. If you've come here seeking purpose, may your call be awakened. And if you've come here hoping to build a new way, may the path open before you. And may this little chalice flame remind us that we are all held together in one beloved community. Time to sing together now. Our first hymn is on your yellow hymn sheet if you're in the building. Come and find the quiet centre. If you're on Zoom, the words will be up on screen as they will for all the hymns today. I've somehow just instinctively I've chosen soothing quiet hymns. That's just how it's going to be this morning, I think. Feel free to stand or sit as you prefer. Come and find the quiet centre. So let's take all of those joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, into an extended time of prayer now. This prayer is based on some words by Carter Smith. You might want to adjust your position to get more comfortable. You might want to put down anything you don't need to be holding. Maybe close your eyes or soften your gaze. Perhaps there's a posture that helps you to feel more centered and prayerful. Whatever helps you to get into the right state of body and mind for us to pray together now and be fully present in this sacred time and space, present to ourselves, to each other, and that which lies within us and beyond us. Spirit of life, God of all love, in whom we live and move and have our being, we turn our full attention to you, the light within and without, as we tune into the depths of this life and the greater wisdom to which and through which we are all intimately connected. Be with us now as we allow ourselves to drop into the silence and the stillness at the very centre of our being. This morning, let us honour our interconnectedness within our own circles, within this community, and radiating ever further to all those with whom we share this city, this country, this continent, this world, and further still to all who went before us and all who are yet to be. When we witness suffering and turmoil in ourselves, in our loved ones, in our community, and in the world around us, may we know compassion. When we're at a loss for words, when we're unsure of the path ahead, may we be guided by this compassion to be witnesses still, to know and to feel that our human family is broken in so many ways, and that is further wounded with every life lost, each estrangement and fracture of relationship, with each time someone's inherent worth and dignity is denied. When we find ourselves exhausted and defeated, unsure of where to go, may we keep witnessing, turning ever further towards your still small voice and turning towards love. And remind us too that the experience of suffering does not and need not close us off from the possibility of joy. May we know that our interconnectedness is a miracle, and may it be a refuge for us, felt in the voice of a friend, the momentary kindness of a stranger, the touch of a loved one, and the comforting memories of days spent in good company. And so may we remain grateful for all the goodness we have witnessed and enacted in this world. And may the warmth of our lives together hold us in love, even as we move into an uncertain future. Help us to truly know your presence, that it may remind us of what is sacred in each precious moment. And may you teach us that sacred presence too, that we might know ourselves here and now, that we may be present for each other and for this one life that we share. And in a few moments of shared silence and stillness now, may we speak inwardly some of the deepest prayers of our hearts, those joys and sorrows that we came in carrying in our own lives and the life of the wider world. Let us each lift up whatever is on our heart this day and ask for what it is that we most need. Spirit of life, God of all love, as this time of prayer comes to a close, we offer up our joys and our concerns, our hopes and our fears, our beauty and our brokenness, and we call on you for insight, healing and renewal. As we look forward now to the coming week, help us to live well each day and be our best selves, using our unique gifts in the service of love, justice and peace. Amen. Time to sing again now. Our second hymn today is in your green books, and it's hymn number 42, A Dream of Widening Love. Hymn number 42.
This poem is called Sometimes by David White, and it's also in your packet of materials if you'd like to follow along. Sometimes, if you move carefully through the forest, breathing like the ones in the old stories, who could cross a shimmering bed of leaves without a sound, you come to a place whose only task is to trouble you with tiny but frightening requests. Conceived out of nowhere, but in this place, beginning to lead everywhere. Requests to stop what you are doing right now and to stop what you are becoming while you do it. Questions that can make or unmake a life. Questions that have patiently waited for you. Questions that have no right to go away. David White has since spoken about this poem. He says, "The marvelous thing about a good question is that it shapes our identity as much by asking as it does by answering." 9 years ago, I wrote a poem called Sometimes, in which I talked about the questions that can make or unmake a life, questions that have no right to go away. I still work with this idea. Questions that have no right to go away are those that have to do with the person we are about to become. They are conversations that will happen with or without our conscious participation. They almost always have something to do with how we might be more generous, more courageous, more present, more dedicated, and they also have something to do with timing, when we might step through the doorway into something bigger, better, both beyond ourselves and yet more of ourselves at the same time. If we are sincere in asking, the eventual answer will give us both a sense of coming home to something we already know, as well as a sense of surprise, not unlike returning from a long journey to find an old friend sitting unexpectedly on the front step, as if she'd known, without ever being told, not only the exact time and date of your arrival, but also your need to be welcomed back.
Thanks, Julia. We'll hear more from David White later on. But we're moving into a time of meditation now. And to take us into the stillness, I'm going to share another poem, this one from Mary Oliver, titled Some Questions You Might Ask. Another one that speaks about these deeper questions of the soul. This is also in your order of service, but maybe just let the words wash over you and you can read it again later if you'd like. It's up to you. These words will take us into a few minutes of shared silence that will end with the sound of a bell. And then we can hear some more music for meditation. So again, let's do what we need to do to get comfortable. Maybe get your feet flat on the floor if that helps you to feel grounded and steadied. Maybe close your eyes. The words are just an offering. Feel free to use this time to meditate in your own way. Is the soul solid like iron? Or is it tender and breakable like the wings of a moth in the beak of an owl? Who has it and who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of the moose is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves into the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have a shape like an iceberg, like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung like the snake and the scallop? Why should I have it and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it and not the camel? Come to think of it, what about the maple trees? What about the blue iris? What about all the little stones sitting alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about the grass?
Good morning. This reading is adapted from How to Ask Beautiful Questions by Angelika Jankovic. I was having lunch with my friend Ond a while ago, and the first thing she asked me when she sat down was, "What is a revelation you have had recently?" I was blown away. I had not been asked such an imaginative question in a while. Around this time, my life had become a quest for the most beautiful question in the world. It is now a day-to-day practice and discipline of mine to ask more thoughtful, provoking, and invitational questions. And this all started with a poet, David Whyte, asking me the most beautiful questions I'd ever heard, and me realizing that I had missed many opportunities to do so myself. A beautiful question always enlarges the context in which you're living, deepening the horizon and taking you out of yourself and into yourself at the same time. How you ask a question is important. And if you're going to ask a beautiful question, be prepared to actually listen to the answer. The job is only half done otherwise. There's a brilliant video by Alan Watts where he asks, "What would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life?" Alan Watts then tells you to do that and forget the money. There is something so satisfying about a really good question like this. It awakens you, shaking off the sleepiness and inviting you to reveal something new. A real question is beautiful, and a beautiful question is real. We're all just waiting to be asked. A real conversation built from beautiful questions is noticeably different to the humdrum of other ones. It will bring you to a new frontier of understanding yourself and others as well. As David Whyte has said, a real conversation always contains an invitation. You are inviting another person to reveal themselves to you, to tell you who they are or what they want. To do this requires vulnerability. Now, we tend to think that vulnerability is associated with weakness, but there's a kind of robust vulnerability that can create a certain form of strength and presence too. I have noticed we often don't have time or space in a conversation to pause and really be present with what question wants to be asked. When I overhear myself asking the same boring thing to a friend mid-sentence, I try to stop and recalibrate. Often I even say out loud, "Wait, let me ask a more beautiful question," and then I try to. You have to practice the ability to ask beautiful questions on a daily basis. To know how to ask such a question, this is where the real power is. And it is so delicious when it happens. Finally, a beautiful question is your question. If you're absolutely fresh to the idea of a beautiful question, start with noticing what is not being said or acknowledged in your own life. Ask, what question has no right to go away in my life right now? Journal it, walk it out, or bring it up with a friend. Each epoch of our life has a beautiful question attached to it. Asking yourself a new kind of question is a doorway to a richer inner you that is then capable of asking it to others.
Thanks, John. So, questions. We Unitarians tend to think of ourselves as people who love the questions, people who like to question everything, perhaps people who aren't satisfied with easy answers. So I don't imagine I'm going to have to do a particularly hard sell on the virtues of asking questions, but the service today is focused on asking beautiful questions. And what makes a question beautiful, I wonder? We just heard from Angelika Yankovic, who said, a beautiful question always enlarges the context in which you're living, deepening the horizon and taking you out of yourself and into yourself at the same time. And elsewhere, she goes further. She says, a beautiful question is a game changer, a question that calls you to take notice. It opens a door to articulate your deepest longings and truths and wakes you up in a sea of how are yous, bringing you to a frontier where deeper intimacy is possible with yourself, the person asking, and the world. And here's another take from another contemplative blogger, Kim Manley-Ort, who says, a beautiful question is ambitious, that is, it's challenging, and actionable, that is, it's doable. It has the potential to shift our perceptions and serves as a catalyst to bring about change. So the premise of our service today is pretty simple. It's to encourage us all to intentionally develop this practice of asking beautiful questions. It is a practice, a skill, and a habit which can help us to grow in self-awareness, to cultivate deeper and more authentic relationships with other people, and ultimately to bring about social change to help build a better and more beautiful world. So as such, I'd say that beautiful questions are an important element of a life well lived. And as David White has said, if you want a beautiful life, start asking beautiful questions. There are 4 different domains I want to highlight as domains in which we can ask these beautiful questions, and of course in which we can also respond to these questions if we're lucky enough to be on the receiving end of them. We can ask them of ourselves. We can ask them of other people, both friends and strangers. We can ask them of the groups we belong to, whether that's particular communities or institutions or the wider society or even the nation that we're a part of. And we can ask questions of God, or we might say ask the universe, if you prefer. So let's take each of those domains in turn. Let's start with the questions that we might ask of ourselves. We already heard those words from Sam Keane at the start of the service. He said, our minds, bodies, feelings, relationships are all informed by our questions. What you ask is who you are. What you find depends on what you search for. And what shapes our lives are the questions we ask, refuse to ask, or never think of asking. The question is the helmsman of the consciousness. And he goes on, the first questions we must ask ourselves are, what's my life about and what gives me meaning? Only after that should we ask, how will I make a living? How do I provide for myself? And then we all have these great mythic questions to answer. Where did I come from? Where am I going? What is of value? How am I wounded and how am I healed? Who are my people and what is my place? I wonder how often you stop to ask these sort of questions of yourself. These are big questions, quite challenging questions, but they can enable us to zoom out from all those day-to-day concerns and responsibilities that tend to fill up our brain space. Such questions can help us to take a larger view on life, where we've been and why we might be headed next. They can provoke us into life-changing insights and perhaps liberate us from self-limiting stories. One little question I return to quite regularly is this: what one thing can I do today to make my life a little bit better? Or sometimes, what thing can I do this year to make my life a little bit better? I find them helpful in a moment where I'm feeling stuck or overwhelmed. It helps me to move forward. Sometimes the answer that comes up is quite mundane. Tidy your bedroom, deal with that admin task that you've been putting off for months, send that email. But I do remember a time some years ago when this question came up. It was a time when I'd left my old job, didn't have a clue what I was going to do next, didn't have any money coming in, and was in a bit of a state about it all. So when I asked myself, what one thing can I do to make this life better? I came up with this speculative 10-year plan for all the courses that I wanted to go on and what the logical order to take them in was. And that culminated in putting myself forward for ministry. I still got the little red bit of paper that I did the little chart on. And just sometimes that question comes along at just the right moment for you to have the insight that shows you the way. There's something in asking such questions of ourselves that is an invitation to think new thoughts. And for some people, the way they do this is through journaling. Others don't get on with writing so much, they might go for a walk and just let the question percolate. They might use some form of artistic expression or just talk it over with a friend. There's another form of self-questioning that various wise people have encouraged me to practice down the years. Whenever I'm telling a very certain story about myself or others of the world, it's important to pause every now and then and ask myself, is that true? Is there something I'm not acknowledging? Might I be wrong? David White has also spoken about this. He says, one of the most beautifully disturbing questions we can ask is whether a given story we tell about our lives is actually true, and whether the opinions we go over every day have any foundation, or are things we repeat to ourselves simply so that we will continue to play the game. It can be quite disorienting to find that a story you've relied on is not only not true, it actually never was true, not now, not ever. But one of the interesting mercies of this kind of questioning is that it's hard to lose by asking. If the story is still true, we will soon find out and we can go back to telling it. If it is not true, we have turned the key, worked the hinges, and walked out into the clear air again with a simple swing of the door. If you like the idea of working with such questions, but you're stuck for inspiration, there are plenty of prompts out there. Angelika Jankovic has collected loads of these beautiful questions from David White. I've put a link to the page with all those questions in the text online, but I've also put a small selection of those questions on a little slip in the order of service. As I say, if you're online, this is all on the website. But I'm going to just read these out. See if one of them leaps out to you as a question you could respond to or wrestle with in the week ahead. What's the question you don't want to ask? What's on the other side of the question you've refused to ask? What helped you to get here that you need to give away? What small thing can you do today that your future self will come back and thank you for? What's on your to-do list that was put together by the person you were yesterday? What promise did you make sincerely that you now need to let go of? How can you be friends with your longings, with what you want? In whose presence do you come alive? What is your particular way of loving? What is your next coming of age? Maybe one of these questions speaks to your condition and you can sit with it in the week ahead. Or perhaps another beautiful question has bubbled up, one that is more meaningful to you, one that is all your own. It's not all about asking questions of yourself, of course. Asking questions of others is a wonderful way to get to know and understand other people better, to nurture meaningful connections. When I'm trying to get to know people and be known by them, I don't want us to stay on the surface for too long. I'm not all that interested in small talk, exchanging run-of-the-mill opinions, idle chit-chat. The beautiful questions get us into the depths, get us talking about what's real, the stuff that matters most. They're an invitation to share something true of our personal story. And as Angelika Jankovic said, sometimes we have to actively stop the flow of conversation to interrupt it with a beautiful question. Even if that feels a bit awkward, a bit eccentric, if we want to take things to a deeper level, it's worth doing. Like she said, we often don't have time or space in a conversation to pause and be really present with what question wants to be asked. So when I overhear myself asking the same boring thing to a friend mid-sentence, I try to stop and recalibrate. I say out loud, wait, let me ask a more beautiful question, and then I try to do so. And we can do that too. Asking such questions of others with care can draw out the heart and strengthen connection. And of course, we need to give similar care and attention to listening to the response that comes back. There is another category of beautiful question that we mustn't overlook. Those questions that we address to the wider society at the level of the state or the institution or the groups that we belong to. Questions that arise out of critical thinking, a willingness to challenge authority, a refusal to take things at face value. And all of this in the service of truth and justice. Questions of why and why not. How could we do things differently? Whose interest is this in? I was interested to recently hear of an organisation called the Right Question Institute, which aims to promote micro-democracy and civic engagement by coaching young people to ask better questions. On their website, it says the transformational skill of asking questions enhances learning, promotes empowerment, and strengthens democracy. People, including those furthest from power, can use this skill to think and learn independently, participate meaningfully in decisions that affect them, and advocate on behalf of themselves, their families, and their communities. I encourage you to look that project up. But there's one more domain I want to mention. We can ask beautiful questions of God in prayer. Or you might think of it as casting questions out into the universe if God language doesn't work for you. We might ask for guidance or direction, maybe in the spirit of help, what do I do now? Maybe looking for moral guidance in a thorny situation or seeking a direction in purpose in our life. I'm in the habit of praying in bed for 5 minutes or so after the alarm goes off and before I get up. And my morning prayers often include something along the lines of, right then, God, what are we doing today? Or sometimes, what am I meant to be doing? Or what's the right thing to do in this tricky situation? Or sometimes looking at the bigger picture and the longer term, where are you calling me next? Articulating these questions helps me to discern where best to put my energy, what my priorities should be, and also what burdens I can lay down and let go of, or at least park for another day. I want to draw this to a close by returning to those words of Sam Keane one last time. And don't forget, they're on the wayside pulpit outside the church, so we've always got a reminder. What shapes our lives are the questions we ask, refuse to ask, or never think of asking. I really do believe that to be true. So I'm going to share just a few more words from David White to close, and to encourage us in giving this practice a try. The ability to ask beautiful questions, often in very unbeautiful moments, is one of the great disciplines of human life. And a beautiful question starts to shape your identity as much by asking it as it does by having it answered. You just have to keep asking. And before you know it, you will find yourself actually shaping a different life, meeting different people, finding conversations that are leading you in those directions you wouldn't even have seen before. So let us keep asking those beautiful questions, and may it be for the greater good of all. Amen. One last hymn. This one is also on your hymn sheet if you're in the building. We belong to one another. We've sung this a few times, but I don't know if we're totally familiar with this tune, so perhaps we'll hear this one once before we sing. We belong to one another. Just time for a few announcements now then. Thank you to Ramona for tech hosting, to Sherry for co-hosting online. Thanks to Georgia and Andrew for lovely music and Edmund for supporting our singing. Thanks to Julia for reading and thanks to John for stepping in as a last-minute reader for us. And thanks to Patricia for greeting and David for making the tea. If you're here in person, we've got apple and sultana cake today, which is a solemn occasion. It's the very last cake made in my old oven. So let's enjoy it, because maybe my cakes will never be the same again. Once you've had a bit of cake, come back in here and, if you've got space, do yoga with Hannah. If you haven't yet filled in a kind of health questionnaire, have a word with Hannah and she will point that to you. That's at 12:30 back in the church. Tonight and Friday at 7, we've got our online Heart and Soul Contemplative Spiritual Gathering. Everyone's welcome. You just need to sign up with me. This week we're looking at growing up. We've got the poetry group this Wednesday. If you want to join that, have a word with Brian and let him know what poems you're going to bring along. This month's Better World Book Club is on They by Sarfaraz Manzoor. We've got a few copies to lend out. Come and grab this one after the service if you want it. All the titles for the rest of the year have actually now been announced, and there's a flyer with all the books through to December if you want to know what's on the horizon. Why not take a copy of our summer newsletter, which has got information about all our forthcoming events and a few nice pictures and reports from things that have happened in recent months? If you do take one, can you please write your name on the list in the foyer? They're all out in the foyer so that we don't send you one as well. If you're online and you're on the membership list or otherwise on the mailing list, you'll get one in the post in the next few days. And it is also on the website. You can read it on there. They're not cheap to produce, but we want people to see it. So if you know someone who you think might be interested in the church, this is our shop window, really. So do feel free to take a spare copy and give it to someone who might appreciate it. And all the details of events for the coming week on the back of your order of service and, of course, in the Friday email. The congregation has got a life beyond Sunday morning, so do what you can to keep in touch, look out for each other and nurture supportive connections. Just time for our closing words and closing music then. The worship of this gathered community is now ended. Go in peace, embraced by the light and warmth of our gathering. Go in love, ready to make your way in this messy and complex world. Go in beauty, shining forth through the struggle like a lamp for liberation. And let us share in the ongoing worship of the community in dispersion, taking what we've found here back out into the world and passing it on for the greater good of all. Amen.